Some deaths are meant to end a life, others are designed to send a message. This story is not about a battlefield, a heroic last stand, or a noble duel between kings. It is about fear, raw, calculated fear, and how empires respond when an idea refuses to die. What happened in London in the summer of 1305 was not justice. It was theater, and its audience was an entire kingdom. 4 miles of dragging, 6 kilometers of jagged cobblestone tearing into living flesh. A screaming London crowd demanding blood, hanged, castrated, disemboweled while still alive, forced to watch his own organs burn on a fire built for spectacle, beheaded, then cut into 4 pieces, shipped to the 4 corners of a frightened realm. This is not the plot of a horror film. It was a real sentence, cold, precise, and legally sanctioned, pronounced at Westminster. The goal was never simply to kill a man. Killing is easy. The goal was to erase an idea. The man at the center of this bureaucratic slaughter was named William Wallace. And to understand why the most powerful king in Christendom devoted the full machinery of his empire to hunting down and destroying a single Scottish rebel, we must understand fear. Not Wallace's fear, but the fear of kings. The year is 1296. Scotland is not a country. It is a corpse being picked apart. King Alexander has died after falling from his horse in the dark. His granddaughter, the young Margaret, the Maid of Norway, dies at sea before she can claim the throne. The royal bloodline is extinct, and when power collapses, the largest predator in the room always rises to fill the void. That predator is Edward the Farce of England. They call him Longshanks for his imposing height. Soon, history will call him something worse, the Hammer of the Scots. Edward does not enter Scotland like a barbarian conqueror. He enters like a lawyer. 13 desperate and ambitious Scottish nobles invite him to arbitrate who should become king. It is the single greatest political mistake in British history. Edward smiles, accepts the role of judge, and then, like a master chess player, demands that whoever is crowned must recognize him as their supreme lord. The Scottish nobles bend. Men with names like Bruce and Balliol, owners of vast estates on both sides of the border, have too much to lose. They trade humiliation for paper crowns. Edward selects John Balliol, a weak placeholder, a puppet king he publicly degrades again and again. But Edward miscalculates. He believes that by buying the elite, he has bought the nation. He forgets that Scotland is not just castles and titles. It is forests, burned farms, and people with nothing left to lose. The English occupation begins immediately, and it is brutal. Garrisons are installed town by town. Taxes rise. Women are dragged into barns. Men who protest are found hanging at dawn. English law, English justice, Scottish despair. While nobles continue to write letters and negotiate terms, a man in southern Scotland, one who does not exist in courtly circles, decides that politics are over. William Wallace does not start a war with speeches about freedom. He starts it with murder. It is May 1297. In Lanark, the English sheriff William Heselrigg rules with iron cruelty. According to tradition, Wallace's wife, Marion, is killed by the sheriff. Records are unclear, but Wallace's hatred is not. He does not raise an army. He gathers broken men and enters Lanark at night. There is no chivalry. Guards are killed silently. Wallace storms Heselrigg's quarters and hacks him apart. It is not a battle. It is an execution, and the news spreads faster than fire. An English sheriff is dead. A Scotsman killed a royal officer and lives. Wallace stops being an outlaw and becomes a symbol. Men armed with homemade spears, woodcutters' axes, and rusted knives flood into the Selkirk forest. They are not looking for nobles. They are looking for the man who struck back. This terrifies Edward in London. It terrifies the Scottish aristocracy even more. Because Wallace is arming the common people, and a people who learn to kill Englishmen may eventually learn to kill their own lords. The rebellion explodes. An English army, professional, disciplined, undefeated, marches north to crush what they believe are bandits. They expect a routine victory. Instead, They arrive at Stirling Bridge. The English have heavy cavalry, elite archers, money, logistics. The Scots have Wallace, Andrew Moray, and the terrain. What happens is not a battle. It is an industrial trap. Wallace allows half the English army to cross the narrow wooden bridge. He waits. When they are divided and trapped against the river, he strikes. The slaughter is total. English knights drown in mud. Peasant spearmen butcher the pride of Christendom. Edward's treasurer in Scotland, Hugh de Cressingham, is captured. No ransom is demanded. He is flayed alive. According to chronicles, Wallace fashions a sword belt from his skin. The message is unmistakable. This is not a land dispute. This is annihilation. Edward is in Flanders when he hears the news. His rage is volcanic. A forest thief has shattered his northern army and humiliated his rule. He signs peace with France immediately. Territory means nothing now. Pride is everything. He returns to England and raises the largest army the island has seen in generations. 25,000 infantry, hundreds of knights, siege engines. Edward rides at the front. This is personal. At Falkirk, a year later, Wallace's military dream dies, but the legend is born. English archers annihilate the Scottish formations. The Scottish cavalry, nobles, flee the field, abandoning Wallace's spearmen. Wallace survives by miracle and vanishes into the forests. Now the real hunt begins. Edward declares Wallace not an enemy soldier, but a traitor. A traitor has no rights. Anyone may kill him. Anyone who feeds him dies. Wallace becomes a ghost. He travels to France, to Rome. He begs popes and kings for aid. No one answers. England is too powerful. No one challenges the hammer for the sake of one fugitive Scot. When Wallace returns home, Scotland has surrendered. The nobles have bent. Robert the Bruce has submitted. Peace has been signed, with one exception. All Scots are pardoned, except one. Edward is clear. There will be no peace while William Wallace breathes. Gold begins to bend loyalties. In 1305, near Glasgow, at a place called Robroyston, Wallace believes he is safe. He is betrayed by Sir John Menteith, another Scot, who trades one man for power. There is no heroic duel, no final stand. Wallace is taken in the dark, asleep, pinned under the weight of his own countrymen. The chains close. The deal is complete. He is no longer a guardian. He is cargo. Edward orders him brought alive. A dead martyr inspires songs. A broken prisoner inspires fear. As Wallace is dragged south, Scotland falls silent in mourning. In England, it becomes a festival of hatred. Crowds line the roads, throwing filth and stones. To them, Wallace is not a freedom fighter. He is a monster. On August 22, 1305, he enters London. Bells ring, not in celebration, but to summon spectators. The next day, in Westminster Hall, Wallace stands alone beneath a ceiling designed to crush the human spirit. A mock crown is placed on his head. No defense is allowed, no jury, no mercy. The charges are read: murder, arson, war, and finally, treason. At this lie, Wallace speaks. "I cannot be a traitor to Edward," he declares, "because I was never his subject." For a moment, the hall freezes. Then the empire does what empires always do. It ignores truth. The verdict is already written, and the sentence, carefully divided, meticulously cruel, begins. The doors open, the crowd roars, the horses wait, and history watches. The final journey of William Wallace begins not with silence, but with violence. From Westminster to Smithfield stretches 6 kilometers of stone, hatred, and intention. Edward I does not want this passage to be endured. He wants it felt. Every inch, every breath. The crack of the whip cuts the air. The massive horses strain forward, and the crude wooden frame lurches violently into motion. Wallace's skull smashes against splintered boards as the sled surges ahead. This is not transportation. It is punishment in motion. The device beneath him has no wheels. It is a rough drag sledge, deliberately designed to keep his body hovering just above the ground. low enough for dust to choke him, high enough for London to touch him. The city has been emptied for this moment. Taverns shut their doors. Workshops abandon their tools. Thousands pour into the streets, screaming in one unified roar. Insults rain down in a language Wallace has learned to hate, but sound quickly dissolves into something more immediate. Pain takes command. As the horses gain speed, the sled slams across uneven medieval cobblestones. Every stone is a blow to the spine. Every jolt threatens to shatter ribs before he ever reaches the scaffold. The route has been chosen carefully. Wide streets, central markets, no shadows. This is exposure, not efficiency. Guards jab back crowds with spear shafts as bodies press forward, desperate to touch the spectacle. And they do more than watch. From upper windows, filth rains down, human waste, stones, rotting fruit, piss in clay pots. Wallace squeezes his eyes shut and locks his jaw. The clothes already fouled from his cell become soaked rags clinging to torn skin. Halfway through the city, friction takes its toll. Wood splinters. His back, dragged against boards and stone, begins to tear open. Blood streaks London mud. Still, he does not scream. That silence is his final act of defiance. Edward wants a broken man, a weeping giant begging mercy from English power. Wallace refuses. He swallows blood, breathes dust, and endures. The convoy moves through London like a wound that will not close. They pass through Cheapside, the heart of English commerce. The irony is sharp enough to cut. The man who fought for a nation's sovereignty is dragged through the marketplace like diseased livestock bound for slaughter. Merchants pause their trade to spit. Children run alongside the horses, hurling stones with learned cruelty. This is not justice, it is erasure. Then the streets open. Stone walls give way to open air. Smithfield, a flat field by name, but a place of blood by purpose. It is the livestock market, the fairground, and the city's dumping ground. The air is thick with animal death, iron, rot, entrails baked into the August heat. At the center rises the scaffold, built high so no detail can be missed. The horses stop. Guards cut Wallace free. His legs collapse beneath him. Muscles numb, bones screaming. He is dragged by hands now, not animals, toward the wooden steps. As he climbs, he sees the men assigned to finish him. They are not soldiers. They are butchers. A table waits nearby. Knives of varying lengths glint in the sun. Iron hooks rest beside them. A brazier burns hot, coals already alive and hissing. Tens of thousands surround the platform. When Wallace is stripped naked, the crowd falls silent. This is absolute exposure. A battered human body against the full authority of empire. The executioner steps forward. There are no prayers, no final words. The sentence begins. The rope is thick, rough. The knot is placed to strangle, not to break the neck. Mercy has been excluded by design. The floor drops, the rope tightens, air vanishes. Wallace does not die. His legs kick uselessly, his face darkens, eyes swell red. The crowd roars as seconds pass. 5, 10, 15. Darkness creeps in. Relief almost comes. Then the signal. The rope is cut. Wallace crashes onto the platform, coughing, gasping, dragging air into scorched lungs. The pain of returning is worse than the choking itself. His body convulses as oxygen floods back. He is alive. And now the real work begins. Hands seize him again, not to free him, but to bind him flat against the wood. Arms spread, legs restrained. He stares up at the sky as phase 2 begins, not to kill the man, but to destroy what remains of him. The blade moves to his groin. The crowd hushes, leaning forward. The castration is swift and absolute. Flesh is thrown into the fire. The smell reaches Wallace before the pain fully registers. He does not scream. The knife rises. The incision is long and deliberate. Skin parts, muscle opens. Cold air touches places never meant to see light. Hands enter the wound. This is not surgery, it is excavation. Intestines are pulled free, lifted, displayed. Wallace is forced to watch his own body emptied piece by piece like a slaughtered animal. His organs are tossed into the fire. Fat hisses, smoke rises. He watches himself burn. How he remains conscious defies understanding. Blood loss is massive, but the executioner is skilled. The heart and lungs are spared. Life is held at the edge by design. Pain becomes everything. The world shrinks to wood, fire, and the expressionless face above him. His jaw clenches. He will not beg. At last the executioner steps back. The condition of disembowelment is satisfied. Wallace's chest still rises, shallow, frantic. The heart still beats. The axe appears. The crowd knows this moment. Hair is pulled back. The neck is exposed. Wallace looks one final time. Perhaps he sees nothing. Perhaps his mind carries him north, back to forests and hills before noise and blood consumed his world. His lips move. No one hears. The axe falls. Bone breaks. The head rolls. Silence grips Smithfield for a heartbeat. Then the executioner lifts the head high. Blood drips. Eyes stare into nothing. A voice shouts, "Behold the head of a traitor." The roar returns, but death is not the end. Axes rise again. The body is quartered with brutal efficiency, limbs separated, humanity reduced to pieces. The head is boiled in pitch to preserve it and mounted on London Bridge, facing north. 4 riders prepare their horses. Their saddlebags carry flesh, salted to slow decay. One rides to Newcastle, one to Berwick, one to Stirling, one to Perth. Edward believes that by scattering the body, he scatters the idea. History will prove him wrong. Night settles over London. London Bridge sinks into shadow, lit only by the flicker of guard torches. Above them, impaled on iron, a head coated in tar sways gently in the Thames wind. Ravens circle, drawn by the smell. Below, taverns overflow with drink and laughter. The king sleeps soundly in his palace. The Scottish problem, they believe, has been solved. The rebel has been erased, cut apart, scattered, reduced to bird feed. Legally, William Wallace no longer exists. Physically, he is everywhere. And as riders gallop north through the darkness carrying their gruesome cargo, something Edward never anticipated begins to happen. News moves faster than horses. Wallace is dead, torn apart. And yet, in the lowland farms and highland huts, the reaction is not fear. The horror is too vast, too final. By denying Wallace a grave, by denying him Christian burial, Edward commits his final strategic error. You cannot visit the grave of a martyr if no grave exists. But if the martyr becomes wind, soil, and sky, then the entire country becomes a monument. Wallace's remains arrive at Stirling, Berwick, Newcastle, and Perth. They are nailed to gates and walls. The flesh blackens. The stench is unbearable. But the effect is electric. Edward believed dismemberment would destroy meaning. Instead, it creates relics. Peasants do not lower their eyes in terror. They pass the severed limbs and see sacrifice. Edward wanted them to see garbage. They see a secular saint. Fear transforms, quietly, chemically, into rage. But rage needs a leader. Wallace is gone. The vacuum is absolute. And within the Scottish aristocracy, one man watches all of this with a tightening knot in his chest. Robert Bruce, Earl of Carrick. Until now, Bruce has been an enigma, a survivor. He has sworn loyalty to Edward, broken it, sworn again. He wants the crown, yes, but more than that, he wants to live. The slaughter in London changes everything. There is no neutral ground left. You are either Edward's servant or his mortal enemy. Scotland's fate is sealed not on a battlefield, but inside a church. February 10th, 1306, Dumfries. Within the chapel of the Greyfriars, 2 men meet, Robert Bruce and John Comyn the Red. Comyn is Bruce's greatest rival, powerful, well-connected, and close to Edward, with his own claim to the throne. The church is cold. Weapons are forbidden. Violence here is mortal sin. They whisper before the altar. Bruce lays out his plan. Rise again against England. He offers Comyn a bargain. Support me and take my lands, or I will support you and take yours. It is desperate, but sincere. Comyn smiles. He holds the better card. If he informs Edward of this treason, Bruce will be the next man dragged through London and butchered at Smithfield. Comyn threatens him outright. Bruce panics. The image of Wallace's head flashes through his mind. There is no time, no compromise. The years of humiliation and hesitation explode. Bruce draws a dagger and stabs Comyn before the altar. The blow is not clean. Comyn collapses, bleeding, but alive. Bruce stumbles outside, pale, shaking. "I think I have killed Comyn," he says, horrified by what he has done. Roger de Kirkpatrick answers coldly, "You doubt? I will make sure." Kirkpatrick enters the church. Steel flashes, screams echo, then silence. He emerges with a red blade. Comyn is dead. The bridge is burned. Bruce has committed sacrilege, murder in a church. The Pope will excommunicate him. Edward will hunt him without mercy. Every road behind him is closed. Only one remains, forward, toward the crown. 6 weeks later, at Scone, the sacred ground of Scottish kings, a rushed coronation takes place. No celebrations, no feasts. Fear hangs in the air. The Stone of Destiny has been stolen by Edward and taken to London. It doesn't matter. Isabella Macduff, defying her pro-English family, places the golden circlet on Bruce's head. It is an act of pure defiance. Robert Bruce is crowned King of Scots, without a kingdom, without an army. A fugitive monarch ruling ghosts. In London, the news reaches Edward I. He is old now, 67, ancient for the age. Sick, likely dying of dysentery. He can barely ride. But when he hears that Bruce has murdered Comyn and crowned himself, fury gives him unnatural strength. Edward throws a grand feast at Westminster, the Feast of the Swans. 2 live swans are brought in, adorned with gold nets. Before the court, Edward swears upon them and upon God that he will march north one final time. He swears he will not sleep 2 nights in the same place until Bruce is dead and Scotland reduced to ash. The war machine wakes again, this time with no mercy. Burn homes, kill cattle, take no prisoners. Bruce is unready. His forces are small, poorly equipped, divided. In June 1306, near Methven, the English strike at night. It is not a battle, it is a hunt. Scots are slaughtered in their sleep. Bruce is dragged from his horse, fighting in the mud as enemies try to seize him alive for reward. He escapes by seconds. Everything collapses. His allies are captured and hanged without trial. His wife and daughter are imprisoned. His sister is suspended in a wooden and iron cage on castle walls, exposed to the elements. Bruce flees alone, hunted by trained dogs. He hides in caves on the Western Isles, where rain never stops and cold gnaws the bones. The man who wanted to be king lives worse than a beggar. It seems Edward has won again. But in a damp cave, whether watching a spider rebuild its web or simply staring into despair, Bruce learns what Wallace taught through death. You do not defeat England by meeting it head-on. You survive. You refuse to die. And while Bruce freezes in the dark, Edward rides north, dying. On July 7th, 1307, near the Scottish border, Edward I exhales his final breath in a tent, consumed by dysentery. The hammer of the Scots dies staring north, toward the land he never fully conquered. Even in death, his obsession remains. He orders his body boiled, flesh stripped from bone, bones carried at the front of the army until Scotland falls. His son ignores the madness. Edward II buries his father in Westminster and then commits the fatal mistake. He turns back. The campaign halts. Scotland breathes. Bruce emerges, but he is no longer a feudal knight playing by England's rules. He wages a new war, scorched earth. Castles are destroyed, not occupied. Wells are poisoned. England is denied refuge, supply, safety. It is ghost warfare. Year by year, fortress by fortress, Scotland returns, taken at night, in silence, with knives. By 1313, only Stirling Castle remains. Then impatience nearly ruins everything. Edward Bruce agrees to a chivalric deadline, June 24, 1314. If England does not relieve Stirling, it will fall. Robert is furious. The deal forces England to come, forces a set battle, the one thing Bruce avoided. England answers. 25,000 men, 2,000 armored knights, a city on the move. Bruce has 6,000. June 23rd, Bannockburn trembles. An English knight charges Bruce directly. Bruce waits and splits his skull with an axe. At dawn, England realizes its mistake. Trapped terrain, no room to maneuver. Bruce orders the unthinkable, infantry advance. The clash is annihilation. When camp followers appear waving sheets, panic breaks the English line. The retreat becomes a rout. Men drown under their own armor. Edward II flees. By evening, the field is silent. 9 years earlier, Edward believed cutting Wallace apart would kill Scotland. Instead, Wallace's blood seeded it. The pieces rotted on English walls. But his ghost won the war. Scotland is free.